Lionel, it's a pleasure having you on. Thanks a lot for being here to talk about the link between diet and healthy aging. And you've been looking at this topic particularly out of the viewpoint of healthy aging of the brain. Can you start off with telling us how this aging process affects metabolic control and how does diet play a role in promoting healthy aging?
So diet is not so much studied in the topic of aging, but there is, I mean, not directly studied, but there is a lot of observations made during the past years about different diets that we use in science, and then we notice, for example, that high fat diet promote unhealthy aging, and on the opposite, of course, some known diets like the Mediterranean diet or Japanese diet are associated with a life expectancy that is longer. For example, in Japan, quite obvious that the diet is associated with the life expectancy. So in fact, the mechanisms involved in how diet impact the healthy aging is not really well known or understood yet. There is, though, many hypotheses, for example, epigenetic regulations, nutrient utilization by the cells because they provide energy. So, of course, if you provide the right amount of energy to a cell, it will work better. If you give more, sometimes there is some dysregulations. So, yeah, something related to the bioenergetic of the cell. There is also some hypotheses about direct interaction with the gene expression, with cell proliferation, and notably telomere attrition. So this part of the DNA that make the cell proliferate without mutation or things like that. So this is the most the hypothesis we have now. What we can say for sure is that I would say that everything is a matter of energy provided by the food, and at both the level of the quantity we need to provide the right amount to the cell, but also to the quality of the nutrient and the energy provided. But in fact, we are still far to really understand how diet can affect healthy aging.
But there is some work done around, special diets. We have another series on the ketogenic diet, or there's caloric restriction, intermittent fasting, etc. So a lot of work is being done to look at how can we use diet to potentially treat various disorders or prevent them. So can you share a little bit what your view is on that and what is most promising maybe out of this?
Actually, in the recent years, we also developed some diets that we call now based on glycemic index, which is a measure of the impact of food on the glycemia. And so what we identified is most of the most, not all the food with low glycemic index, so with less impact on glycemia, has the best benefits for health. And in fact, everything seems to be related to the amount and the nature of the sugars provided in the food. So there is many impacts. Of course, as I said just before, it's the sugar, the glucose is the main energy source for the cells. So providing the cells with the right amount of energy is really important. Now, a new topic also that emerged during the last, I would say, 20 years is the impact of the food and of the microbiota on health. And so low glycemic diets, for example, are usually enriched in vegetables, which is the case for the Mediterranean diet, for example. And this feed the microbiota, and there is some signals from the microbiota that then have many effects on the body, on the health of the host, at the liver level, for example, with steatosis, but also in brain. So there is many now studies showing an interaction between microbiota and neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer or Parkinson or others. So there is this link, and in the diets, this is the case also, for example, for the ketogenic diet, which is a diet almost with no sugars in it, which induce a lipid metabolism in the body, and which is responsible for the production of ketone bodies. But all of these healthy diets are low in carbohydrates. And so there is this direct effect on glycemia, on cell metabolism, cell function, but also probably through signals from the microbiota and the changes in bacteria population that we can find in the gut. One thing that we can say for sure is that most of the processed food are the worst for the health because there is many additives in it. So first of all, most of these processed food contain added sugars. And as I just explained, too much sugar is not good for your health. But there is also many other additives, artificial sweeteners, and other conservatives. And in fact, we don't know really the impact of these additives on health. So if I have one advice to give is just decrease as much as possible the processed food from your meals. And that's the best thing to do. And then controlling the amount of carbohydrates and simple sugars are also a key point in healthy diets.
So you talk now about obviously the low glycemic index diets, reduce the amount of sugars, and what to leave out of diet. Can you now talk a little bit about what mechanisms are involved in the beneficial effects of diets on health? So particularly in the context maybe of your work around neurological disorders in the brain.
Yes, so first of all, I need to say that the brain is the main consumer of sugars of the body. So it uses about 25% of the total glucose of the body daily. So it's a huge consumer of glucose. And because of that, controlling, managing the amount of sugars coming to the brain is really important. So there is this theory of the selfish brain. So in fact, when there is less sugar available in the body, either by the food or because of fast or things like that, the brain stimulates glucose production from the liver mainly to sustain its energy needs. In a way, some neurodegenerative diseases are finally associated with a defect in energetic of the cells. And so that's probably why the diet and the low glycemic index diet are beneficial to these diseases. I give an example. It's for epilepsy. It's a disease that is treated for almost more than a century, actually, with ketogenic diets. So with low amounts of sugars. And this has a really huge beneficial effect because with ketogenic diets, you can decrease by 60% the amount of stroke in epileptic people. And this is because you decrease the sort of hyperactivity induced in this disease. So most of the hypotheses, because again, the mechanisms at play are not fully understood, but most of the hypotheses involve bioenergetic of the cell. So it starts at the mitochondrial level with the ATP production, because then ATP can, if you adjust the amount of ATP, you can also adjust the activation of the cells through the potassium channels that are associated with the depolarization of the cells, of the neurons. So there is this hypothesis. So by decreasing, modulating, or adjusting the activity of the mitochondria and the production of ATP, there is also some hypotheses involving again on the Krebs cycle, TCA cycle. So you have the utilization of oxaloacetates, and the ketone bodies particularly can interfere with this utilization, which diverts then the pathway to produce more GABA neurotransmitter, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. So if you increase the GABA amount through the ketonemia, the utilization of ketone bodies, you will inhibit the activity of the brain. So again, it's something that finally eventually modulate the activity of the brain. So most of the hypotheses are through these pathways. Also, I have to say some genetic regulation, so ketone bodies, but also some products from the microbiota or hormones can directly affect the gene transcription through epigenetic regulations. So that way you can release or expose some genes to transcription or not. So this is a direct genetic effect through these molecules. But again, the real mechanisms at play are not fully understood, and probably depending on the disease, of course, different mechanisms can be involved, and also there is different brain areas involved. So sometimes the circulating signals cannot reach the same way different areas. So there is a lot of work to do still to completely understand that.
So thank you very much, Lionel. Thank you for sharing all this, and best of luck with your further work. Thanks.